interesting.
These are a little bit tall.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I think it's fair to say on behalf of all the providers and the advocates in the room, thank you, Richard, for this tremendous work.
No, well, thank you. I want to thank the Alliance for doing everything you do every day, sometimes 24/7. So, I mean, this is for you. I'm honored to be here. So thank you all. And Nan, thank you. Maria, thank you.
Thank you. And Oren, if you'd please stand.
Did you stand before? Because you
Moverman,
should. Oren Moverman wrote and directed this wonderful film. And Caroline Kaplan is here somewhere. Is Caroline here? Caroline is over there. Caroline is my co-producer on it. Stand up, Caroline.
So Richard, we know you not only for your brilliant acting, but for your lifelong commitment to human rights issues as an activist, as a humanitarian. And in New York, we know the incredible advocacy you've dedicated to the homeless issue for many, many years. Tell us what motivated you to develop this project. I think it was over 10 years?
It's at least 10 years. I lose track, but I'm using 12 years.
Okay.
So I can't. You know, I do remember now. There was a director of my foundation at the time said, look, I want you to meet, I was branching out into many different areas, and I want you to meet Mary Brosnahan, who is the head of the Coalition for the Homeless in New York. And she came into my office and we started talking, and it was in the context of prison issues and some other things that we were doing. And I was just so taken with her, and more I started to hang around her office, and we were passing out warm clothes in the winter and food at Thanksgiving and all those things that you guys do constantly. And I started to feel it more and more. Obviously, you live in New York, you're dealing with the homeless issue every time you're on the streets. There are a number of 60,000 people are in shelters now every night in New York. So it's omnipresent. If you keep your eyes open at all, it's part of the reality of our world. And as I said, about 12 years ago, a script came to me that had a core of something that was really vital and mysterious and powerful to me. And I ended up buying the script, and I was trying to figure out what to do with this because it wasn't right. And there was a book review and an article in the paper about a guy, Cadillac Man in New York. He was a homeless guy who wrote his autobiography, actually on just little scraps of paper. And he found someone in his local area in Queens that befriended him and started putting together these bits and pieces of observations and memories of his life. But the book was written in a very non-emotional way, unsentimental. It was just clear, this is what happened. And I knew this was the way to make our movie. It's not a movie about backstories. It's about emotions, it's about feelings, it's about the mysteries of yearning, displacement, trying to find our place in the universe, and more locally our place right here, right in front of me. How do I fit in this world? How can I become part of a reality structure that somehow I've become untethered from? So anyhow, I ran into my great friend and partner here, Oren Moverman, and we started talking about what we were doing, and I said, well, I had the script, and it's not right, but I need someone like you, Oren, to rewrite this. He said, well, just give it to me. So he read it right away, and we started talking, and we saw eye to eye very clearly from the beginning of how to make this work. He wrote a brilliant script, and we found the minimal amount of money it takes to make a movie. And we shot for 21 days, and we made what I consider one of those things I'm most proud of that I have done.
As you should be. So tell us a little bit about the filming. You filmed in New York. For those who saw the film last night, I think we all related how authentic the experience is, really. And your process as an actor, sort of losing Richard Gere and becoming a homeless middle-aged man on the streets of New York. There's scenes of you wandering around Grand Central Station, which we saw in the trailer, panhandling in Astor Place. Tell us about that experience.
Well, I'll tell you, some of the actor's process is mysterious. There's nothing that I can portray that on some level I haven't felt. And maybe not in this lifetime, but another lifetime. At the very least, I have to be able to imagine it so completely that it takes me over. In this case, it's funny. I mean, people look at this film and they think, wow, he really went far out in this. But I think the coupling of the great script that Oren wrote and the universality of the feeling. I know there are a lot of people in this room who have been homeless and have pulled themselves out of it. And you deal with homeless people all the time. But the closeness I think we all have to losing it completely is always there lurking. Sometimes very close and sometimes a little far away, but it's right there. It's lurking right over our right shoulder. And it's not that hard to access that. And I think we've seen in our community that we work with how quickly that descent can happen when you lose your home, when you lose your family, you lose your job, how quick that descent into some form of dislocation. And perhaps mental illness starts to set in where you just lose it. Now, because of the way we chose to do this film, that I was going to be out there in the streets. We're going to be on very long lenses. The footprint of the movie making was never going to be apparent to anyone on the streets. They were hidden in storefronts and on the tops of buildings and in apartments and always through glass. We're always seeing things stacked up through layers of life and things, the city, people hurrying about doing their things. So the concept was that I would be able to be on the streets and no one would pay any attention. And of course, we all thought, is that possible? And we kind of, without thinking it too heavily or too hard, we just decided we were going to do it. We had one test day. And it was a costume test day, or we were calling it that, but it was really a concept test day to see if this would actually work. So we set up, Oren set up his cameras in a Starbucks in Astor Place in New York, very busy place in the Village in New York. And I was in character. Mentally, I was in character, and I looked like the character. And I got the word, and I came out into Astor Place and stood there. I never would do this. As Richard Gere, there's no way I would be standing on a street corner. And so I did this, and I came out there and I was a little anxious, maybe more than a little anxious about it, and I stood out there and just enough, the cues of me being in character and mentally, emotionally, but physically also being in character, immediately I was, the cliche is invisible, but I came to realize it wasn't invisible, it was really, I was a black hole. I was a black hole that people were terrified of being sucked into. And we ended up shooting for about 45 minutes, continuously. No one paid any attention to me. The shot's in the movie. I think it was part of it's in the trailer here as well. And I got a little more brazen as I was there. I was making eye contact with people, or trying to, but no one made eye contact with me. I wasn't being aggressive in any way. I just had a cup saying, "Spare change, can you help me out? Spare change." Nobody. I made $1.50. I was very bad at this.
In 45 minutes?
But I need remedial training on how to do that well. But it was appropriate for the character because he was just starting to learn how to do this also. But it was a profound and in some sense terrifying experience for me, how fragile our reality structures are and how much we deal with the surface of things, all of us. And how we take cues, essentially visual cues, that inform our emotional reaction to things. And the cliche of the guy on the corner and how a homeless guy or woman looks cues an emotional response to the world around them in a really destructive and terrifying way. The profound experience for me, of course, is in some sense, I'm Richard Gere, the movie star, but I'm also just Richard Gere. And in that case, I was just Richard Gere with only negative projections on me, as opposed to these positive projections. I look out here and people seem to like me and appreciate me. And on the street, it wasn't that way. And so you can imagine the kind of personal, deep experience I was having in the process of making this movie, reevaluating how I see things and how people view me. I think there's I think probably most of you know I'm a Buddhist, and I didn't plan it this way, but I think there's something that came out of this character that was kind of monk-like.
Simple needs.
Sorry?
His simple needs.
It's very
for
simple,
shelter, for
very
food,
simple, very simple. Living in the moment. I'm hungry, I'll try to get something to eat. I'm tired, I'll try to find some place to sleep. There's no job to go to, there's no appointments, there's no money to do anything. It's pretty much there, still in the busiest city in the world. And I think the brilliance of how Oren chose to tell the story visually, but also orally, and the sound, and this, I hope you do, the ones who haven't seen this film, I hope you see it on a screen with good sound, because the oral experience of this film is extraordinary. I don't think there's ever been a film like that gives you the emotional cues of what it's like to be homeless through sounds. It's really profound that way.
In talking about the frustration of the character of George Hammond, not being able to easily satisfy those basic needs. He's exhausted, he's starving, he's freezing, and he needs to access those simple services. And the film, I think very authentically, presents a lot of the bureaucratic nightmares at times for providers in trying to expedite that process. And we actually have a clip that shows just that. I think we'd have to move out of the way to show the clip for a minute. You do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We actually do.
Oh, it's over there. Okay.
Yeah, but let me set this up a little bit. One of the extraordinary things we were able to do here was actually shoot in Bellevue. We actually shot in the shelter in Bellevue, and I never thought we'd be able to, but our karma was good, and we were able to do this. It's kind of extraordinary. We had one night, and we actually followed my character through standing in line in the cold and dark to enter the shelter and be processed. And we followed him right through the process. So we actually started at 11 o'clock at night. We finished about 6 in the morning, something like that. Yeah. But all the stuff that's in Bellevue, in fact, it's supposed to be in the story, was shot in Bellevue in that one night. So I think we're going to see part of that. Not that whole sequence, but part of it.
These two side screens.
Oh, I'm just looking for a place for a couple of nights, because it's over 32 degrees outside.
Yeah, that's
Just a little while.
that's not what I'm asking. Okay, I'm looking for your name. I want to see if you've been already assigned a shelter. Don't bust my balls,
No, I'm
please.
sorry. Look, can I just get a bed for one night?
Do you have any form of ID?
No, I don't.
You have anybody you can call? Anybody you can stay with? A friend's couch?
I don't have any.
Nothing.
Look, are you filled up or something? Is that? I could come back later if that's better.
There's no later.
No.
The law says we have to give you a bed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any place is fine. Anything you got. I mean, the floor's fine with me. I just need a blanket. A blanket makes me sleep better. I like a blanket.
Okay, look, you'll stay here tonight in a bed.
Okay, good.
We'll evaluate you. If you qualify, you'll be assigned a permanent shelter.
A what?
A place where you could stay.
Permanent?
It's up to you. We have all kinds.
It's been a long time since I had a job. It's been many years. I'm too old to be hired. No one's going to hire me not like I am. I'm really no good right now.
Well, look at me, man. 9/11 blew my brains out. I had to crawl out of a ditch, if you know what I mean.
I don't know what you mean.
I was on your side of the glass once.
Yeah.
So how much is it?
What?
A bed. How much is a bed tonight for one night? Because I don't have much. I don't have. In fact, I don't have anything. I'm kind of in between now.
Have a seat.
Well, hopefully there'll be a time where in intake processes, there'll be right to shelter in every state, but thankfully that was New York. Were you able to spend time with homeless men while you were filming? Did you learn anything new? Did anything surprise you about the way homeless men were living in the shelters?
Well, you know, I'd spent years researching this before we made the film, and it was when Orrin and I got together and we decided that we would make this film, I kind of revisited my process and took Orrin to shelters, and it was interesting to me to revisit my own first reactions and have a different reaction 6, 7, 8 years later. I probably shouldn't say this, but actually it seemed to get better. I think the conditions were better 8 years later, 10 years later than they were. But the chronic issues were the same. They were totally the same. The issues of connection, I'm continually struggling to repeat myself, but how quickly we descend into some level of mental illness. And you can see that in the shelters. I think what we were able to portray in the shelter scenes where he is with the other men is this sense of trying to find some sense of community, even there, like one does in a prison, one does in the military, one in a situation where one is not accustomed to. You still, in simple ways, you're protecting yourself because you're terrified, and at the same time, in simple ways, trying to find a connection. And we see him go through this process of reaching out, pulling back continually in this film. At the same time, we're, I think, aware of his mental state deteriorating to the point where it's possible that some of the things in the film are totally a mental process for him. They don't even exist in the real world. So I think that was my biggest takeaway, is how fragile we all are. I could recognize myself in everyone I met.
I thought it was interesting, too, how the character can't really accept that he's homeless. In the trailer, you heard George say to his friend, perhaps not real, perhaps imaginary, played by Ben Vereen, am I homeless? Am I homeless? That it seems unfathomable. And Ben Vereen at one point says, we're reduced. Use the word reduced. That phrase stuck with me. What do you think that we should be doing as advocates, as providers? What can we do you think, to help shift culture about the way in which we see the man on the street, and who we think are homeless? Our compassion for homeless veterans has been tremendous. As we know, we've made tremendous inroads. There are more children in the homeless system than ever before. There are more families. What can we do to raise that consciousness?
Well, I think it's sensitizing. You know, no matter what you're an advocate for whatever subject it may be, if we can personalize it. If it's not about numbers. Numbers doesn't touch anybody. Never has, never will. The more numbers there are, the more numb we get. The more we see one face in present time and engage in present time with respect, as long as we can see ourselves in the other, I think it's the most important thing. We can engage them. If this sense of some kind of connection isn't present, the actions are going to be false anyhow. They'll never lead to anything good. Anything that is based on an open-hearted connection, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not perfect people, but just even the slightest taste of empathy, of connection, of identification, opens us all up. You know, we've seen that wonderful girl from Pakistan who's an advocate. Immediately the world opens up. When a child is able to express their story to us, we hear it. More difficult when it's a black man, a brown man, who looks a little scary. So we have to find a way to break down our visual cortex, again, that feeds into this emotional background, and stop projecting onto people based on what they look like. This can be solved. You know, I hope you're all out of work in 10 years. Yeah. You don't have to do this anymore.
That's our goal. That's our goal. Unemployment for all. But I know you feel very strongly about community, about the responsibility of community. That this issue, while we all know we need federal funding and how important it is to secure more and more, that we can't really implement long-lasting solutions without having community support, engagement, and heart, a community that cares.
I was telling the story the other night. My father is 93. My mother's 90. My father, when he was in his late 70s, I think it was, he'd always been part of Meals on Wheels, but he got even more serious about it. And I'm terrified he's driving the car, but he drives the car with the meals in the back of a station wagon. And he bought this station wagon. He's got this really cheesy station wagon, but the back platform of the station wagon is the right height, so he doesn't have to bend over. So,
great.
You know, he's like this, and he takes it out, and he walks up the steps. And I was talking to him about his feelings about this, and he said, you know, he feels good about bringing the food, but you know, the reality is, Richard, I'd like to go and jolly people up. That's how he described it. And what he's saying is, I like to make a human connection. He says, that's more than the food. That I come and spend time, I joke around, I make a silly comment, I hang. You know, this is what I do. And that it's the human connection that's healing. It's always that. In my own life, when things have been dark, it's the human connection that heals me out of it. It's our communities. My parents came from a very small town in Pennsylvania, and they knew everybody. Where in Pennsylvania? County. Yeah. Right outside Philly. I was born in Philadelphia. Whoa! We have anyone from Susquehanna County? Over here? No? Yes, Susquehanna County. Well, that's the county my people came from. And but they know is now. Susquehanna, your county hasn't changed. No. There's no new people. We lose old people, but there's no new people. And everyone knows each other, right? Everybody. Well, this is the change we make. We now live in cities, and we don't know each other. We live in buildings, we don't know the other people in the building. Well, we have to find a way to know each other in the building. We have to find a way to know each other on the street. I had a local homeless guy who was our homeless guy on the corner of 10th and University. And he was our family member. And he was not well. We tried to give him jobs, and nothing quite worked. He ended up back there on the streets. But you know, we were clients of our guy, and we saw him every day, and we knew some of his story. But he was fed by the connection of familiarity with us. That's community. Even on that level, that is community. That is feeding a positive way a very dark situation.
Absolutely. I thought it was also a beautiful dynamic between George and his daughter, who he's clearly estranged from, and you saw in the trailer where the daughter says it's supposed to be the parent that takes care of the child. And that, I know, struck home for many of us who work with families or single populations, and we strive for reunification. But again, a very human angle on the story. Now, you see how many communities are represented here. How many, Nan, do you think?
Oh, I don't know.
How many? Many.
States,
So the
47 states.
47 states. That's incredible. That's good film business.
Who's not here?
So the,
Who's not here? They're not fessing up.
because the film opens on September 9th, and we certainly will be looking for it in all of our communities.
Yeah, the one thing I think it's important for Oren and I, when we made this film, we set out to be as honest. It was important for us last night the litmus test for us was that you guys who know this territory bought into the film. That was really important. I don't think you realize how important that is to us, that you guys believe it. And we made a film that we're really proud of, but we're going to be even more proud of it if you guys are able to use this film to do your work. So please, I mean, it's our film, so we can do whatever we want with this thing, and we want to make it available to you to use in your communities. And as the movie rolls out, IFC is putting the film out, distributing the film. We start in major cities, but it's going to roll out into other areas. Sometimes I'm going to be able to come to those territories. So think about, think about how you can use a film. You know, whether we can do a thing in Chicago, we're going to do a thing in Los Angeles, we'll do a thing in New York. There are other places, where? Boston. I'll do one in Boston. Where else? What else we got? Yeah? Yes? Yes? Yes?
Oklahoma.
Alabama. Oklahoma. Okay.
You're going to be very busy. We hope
No, but I promise you, some of these we actually will do. I can't do everyone, obviously. I'm definitely doing Oklahoma.
But you know.
No, but think about this. Even if I can't come, Oren can't come, think a way to use the film. Even we might be able to do something where I Skype.
That's right.
You know, and do something to connect it. What I want to do, I can't do what you guys do. The 24/7 that you guys do, I cannot do. But if I can plug in a little bit and help you lift up in your communities what you do, I'm happy to do it. So.
Well, there is a very talented and committed team around the film to help make sure this happens, and there are a lot of ways in which you can use a film like this for social advocacy very effectively, even without the movie star in tow. But you know, there are streaming opportunities, there are Skype opportunities, there are limitless ways to bring your community in, you know, from local libraries to associations to political groups. So hopefully everyone will check the film website and stay on top of their social media as well. But once again, we cannot thank you enough for shedding a light on this most essential, what we consider human right, the right of every American to have a safe home. So we thank you, and we thank you, Oren, as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome, Richard.
Go ahead.